Can I just say one thing firstly? I love the name Eat Sleep Boxing Repeat.
Welcome back to ESBR Boxing in partnership with sharpbetting.co.uk, your home for betting tips and analysis. Please click the link in the description to find out more. Delighted to be joined by Owen McKendry. This is the final prediction video for the big middleweight fight taking place in Kazakhstan this weekend. Number one middleweight in the world, Janibek Alimkhanuly, holder of the IBF and WBO world titles, will face the undefeated Anauel Ngamissengue in Astana, Kazakhstan. Owen, good to be joined by you as always. Bit of an unknown quantity. This fight was when it was announced wasn't a fight that people were expecting to see happen. We were kind of hoping to see Janibek face Hamza Shiraz this year. It's unlikely that's going to happen now. But he's fighting an undefeated fighter here, someone who's genuinely ranked. So we'll see what happens. But yeah, before I go on too much, I will ask you for your final prediction, please.
Thank you for having me on as always. I'm gonna go Janibek stoppage. And Ngamissenge's a bit of a knockout artist himself, looking at his record, but he hasn't fought anyone of any stature, anyone of note. So he can obviously pop a bit, obviously carries some power, but Janibek's probably the best middleweight in the world. I know that's not a damning statement considering the state of the middleweight division and the state it's been in over the last 18 months, 2 years. I just think Janibek's going to be too big, too good for him. Obviously, he's not the biggest middleweight, but I just think when you're stepping up, I know Ngamissenge's ranked, but yeah, I just think Janibek's going to have far too much for him, and he'll stop him in the mid to late rounds, sort of 7, 8.
Yeah, and of course, look, I'm not going to kind of try and nail you down for an exact kind of precise prediction because, like a lot of people, we didn't know who kind of Ngamissengue was before the fight was announced. But he's kind of possibly a top 15 middleweight. Had a good amateur career. Almost qualified for the Olympics, and he's gotten to full 14-0 now, and we'll see what happens. I'll join you as well, Owen. I think we'll go for Janibek KO. I think there's a worry with me that Janibek, continually fighting guys that significantly lower level than him, and it'll get to the point where he underrates someone that he shouldn't underrate and ends up paying the price. So you can't rule out that happening in this fight. 'Cause this is a proper fight. He's not fighting kind of a journeyman or someone who's just nowhere near world level. And I just think that's the worry with Janibek. I think sometimes we've seen him a bit hot and cold, take longer to get guys out there than he should do. The last fight against Mikhailovic being an example took him 9 rounds. It probably should have taken him three, to be honest.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll see. I like Janibek, but that's kind of a minor concern of mine. But I'll join you. I think it would be like when the stoppage will happen. I don't know, but if I had to go, I'd go middle rounds, kind of rounds 5 to 7 for me. How I want to ask you a couple of questions about Janibek because I know you're probably the most honest member of ESBR when you're kind of brutal with your opinions. How highly, from what you've seen of him, how highly do you rate him? He's seen as the best middleweight in the world. Do you think would you describe him as elite level?
Um, I think he potentially could be, but I think, as you said, the hot and cold is what's stopping him. We've seen him hurt fighters like his last fight. I think it was round 3, where all he had to do was throw 2 more punches and the fight was done. I had money on it as well. I was fuming personally, but it's that case that I think that is your good fighters to your world class to your elite. An elite fighter would have sensed the blood there. And it weren't even like he had to go steamrolling in either. I don't think it's the first time either. It's happened in his career where he's potentially hurt. Where he's hurt his opponent and hasn't jumped all over it. I'm not expecting him to go in all guns blazing. Someone that's supposedly the best in the division should be able to be, a calculated attack, but be able to find the angles and the shots. So I think he's got potential to be, probably world class. I don't think he's going to be an elite fighter. Your elites are your Bivols, Beterbievs, Canelos, Inoues, etc. So I think he's definitely got potential to be world class, but I think, like you say, he's just too hot and cold. I watch him and I think he's a bit of a monster, and then I watch him and I think he's just a bit. I, I think simple is probably the wrong words, but you get where I'm coming from. It's just sort of he doesn't do a lot. He's not amazing on the eye, so he's difficult. I don't think he'll be elite by any stretch of the imagination, but I think if he can stay more on the hot side than the cold, then there's definitely a world-class fighter in there.
Yeah, for sure. I think another factor I bring with Janibek, by the time the fight happens, he'll be 32 years old.
Mhm.
You're not a young fighter at that age, and I think that the next 12 months or so should be a big period in his career. But will it be? I'm not sure because I think as you kind of alluded to, the middleweight division is not it's not star-studded, and we don't know what Janibek's going to be like at 168. I'm sure that the move up will happen at some point, but how he gets on against the likes of Diego Pacheco, Caleb Plant, Edgar Berlanga, we don't know. But I think those are tough fights for him. Final question for me, Owen. How clearly is he the best middleweight in the world? Carlos Adames, Arasandi Lara, the other world champions. Adames, as we saw, really should have beaten Hamza Shiraz a few weeks ago in a fight he was the underdog for. Lara, still a world champion. He's full 41 years old, but he's still a world champion. It's not fought since September. We really don't know what he's doing next. But how clearly is Janibek the best middleweight in the world for you?
I think he is clearly for me. Lara likes to fight once every 3 years. No one knows what he's going to do. Adames, he got robbed against Shiraz. Let's be honest. But I don't. I think he done well, but I don't think he set the world alight in that fight either. So I think he is comfortably the best middleweight, but there's no star-studded names like Hamza Shiraz. There's already talk of him. That could be a big fight over here, but even in Saudi. But there's already talk of Shiraz moving up. I think in recent years, middleweight's been such a stepping stone up to 168 and super middleweight. That's probably what's left it behind. But I think his biggest issue is he is the best at 160 for me, but if he goes up to 168, he's not going to get the Canelo fight. Um, Canelo's obviously going to be chasing David Benavidez, etc. I know he's going to be fighting William Skull as well, but even the likes of Edgar Berlanga, Caleb Plant, I think they might be too big for him because, as I say, Janibek's not the biggest middleweight. So as he steps up, somebody could find some of them just too big and strong. So I think he's in a really. It sounds mental to say unified world champions in a difficult spot, but I think he is in the sense of if he beats Lara, everyone goes, oh, well, he only fights once every 2 years. He's 42 years old. We expect it. If he fights Adames and beats him, they go, well, Adames weren't as good as we expected. So he's a world champion that's in a not a lose-lose position, but it doesn't seem like there's a win-win for him. So I think he is comfortably the best at the weight, but I just don't, I just can't see him getting that star power because the fights aren't there for him.
It's a shame. I just think we should be here in the next 12 months saying what an exciting fight for Janibek. But for one
Absolutely.
reason or another, and it's not all his fault, but for one reason or another, we haven't had that conversation yet in his career.
Mhm.
And hand on heart, I'm not sure we'll have the conversation in the next 12 months, but we'll see. I really hope he kind of gets that big fight or at least certifies himself as the best middleweight in the world in 2025, but we'll see. Owen, good to be joined by you as always. Always appreciate your time, appreciate your predictions, and I'll speak to you again very, very soon.
Cheers, mate.